Hi, everyone. This is LiberAsian from the LiberAsian podcast. And today on the show with us, we've got Visa. And just a bit of background info on the podcast. We are exploring how Asians can live lives of greater freedom and fulfillment despite any limiting cultural beliefs and stereotypes that may be in the way, along with other adverse life situations. So a little bit of background about me. I have been a life coach for about a year. I'm really passionate about helping people live the lifestyles and careers that they love. And yeah, I'm going to pass on to Visa to introduce herself too.
Thank you. My name is Visa, and people always ask me, like the credit card, and I'm like, yes, like the credit card. I am a life and mindset coach. I'm also a wife, and I'm a mom to two boys who are 7 and 10. And I have been a life coach for about 4 years now, and it has been quite the journey to get here. I don't think anyone ever wakes up and says, "I'm going to be a life coach one day." I think life happens, and then you decide, "Oh my gosh, like the way I'm learning to live life has set me free, and so I need to be able to guide others to do the same." So I think you and I probably had a similar journey in that sense, maybe.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, that leads into my first question. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom to me means feeling so good in my own skin and not comparing myself to others and not judging myself. Freedom to me means doing the things I love without worrying about what others think of me. It means freedom of time and freedom to explore who am I? Who am I without the boundaries of what our culture and our families have told us what we should be?
Yeah. Yeah, and how were you able to evolve into the state of freedom that you're in right now?
Been through a lot of heartbreak and heartache and
Okay.
confusion.
Uh-huh.
And heartbreak in the sense, not like a romantic relationship, but heartbreak of realizing, oh, the corporate career I chose feels so wrong. And that disappointment you feel, the confusion you feel, that stuckness you feel of being somewhere that you know is completely wrong, but you're terrified of taking the next step. And then you do it anyway, and you're
Yeah.
filled with guilt and you're filled with shame, and
Uh-huh.
you feel like you're letting your family down because you're letting go of a really good income to go explore this crazy idea that you have. And that crazy idea isn't even fully formed yet, right? So I think a lot of people believe that they look at people who have, these fulfilling, satisfying life, and they think, oh, she just was probably just had this idea one day and it all worked out easily. No, like I went through so many mistakes and I have wasted time, I've wasted energy, I've invested in things that are wrong, and then on hindsight you realize it wasn't right, and all the learning that comes from it, right? And all the shame that you feel, like all of that has led me to get here today. So my question to your listeners would be, are you willing to go through some big mistakes, and I always put this word in air quotes, failures, right? We are paralyzed by this idea of what happens when and if I fail. And what I've come to realize is that you cannot get to the pretty picture that you want without failing. And then what do you make it mean? Like when you fail, what do you make it mean? You can make it mean that it's the end of the world and you're not meant to have it. Or you can make it mean nothing and be like, oh, I learned how not to do it. I'll just keep going.
Uh-huh. Right. So how has failure become easier for you to handle?
Because I have redefined what it means to fail. So it still hurts when I fail. It's still disappointing when I don't get the results that I was going for, right? But the heaviness that we attach to what it means, I've let it go. So now I redefine failure as the outcome was different to the expectation. That's all failure is. Let me
Oh,
repeat that.
wow.
The outcome was different to my expectation. That's it. That's all failure is if you really think about it.
Yeah, I love it. It's so refreshing and simple.
It is so simple, but that's really the truth is that's all it is. You wanted to get 100 in a test, you got a 60. Okay, the outcome was different. That's all it means. That's all it means. It doesn't mean you are dumb. It doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean you didn't work hard enough. We make it mean all those things. So when we let go of the meanings that we attach, then failure becomes much easier to recover from. And the really important question to ask is, what can I do differently next time? Right? What can I do differently next time? Because all failure was it was a lesson that you needed to learn to move on and try again. I think in Asian culture, failure has such a stigma, and failure is the end of the world. And our parents, as well-meaning as they are, they attach that stigma to us. So we are terrified of failure.
Yeah.
But we get to redefine it. We don't have to continue with those same meanings.
Yeah. Yeah. And what you said earlier, right, about this being a messy process, right? Not like A to Z, straight line kind of thing, but pretty sure, right? Lots of learnings and unexpected turns along the way. So it's, thank you for sharing that and making it real for us, because because a lot of us don't hear that side of someone who is successful or has been doing something for a number of years.
Oh, thank you. I'm all about the real. I mean, because when I look at somebody successful further ahead than me, and they shared their insecurities and their imperfections and the fears they feel, I'm like, oh my God, that to me feels like freedom, because they're telling me you can be messy and not know all the answers and still get to where I am. Right. So I do the same, because I feel free when I hear people sharing their vulnerable stories. So then I get to do the same for others, because I'm sure when somebody hears my story, they too will feel the same.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, like, paying it forward to the
Absolutely. And
next
we
year.
want to hear about people's imperfections. We don't, when we hear about somebody who has it all together and is perfect all the time, it feels so unattainable and intimidating. And we think that's not possible for me. But when you hear about somebody really successful and tell us, I made all these mistakes, but I kept going and I got here, and you're like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, giving that hope, right? Because none of us are truly picture perfect. Even the picture perfect people probably are hiding things.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but it's so.
Then that, going back to your question of freedom, that's not real freedom, because then you're hiding aspects of yourself.
Yeah,
and
that's
hoping
true.
that nobody will find that out.
That's true. Yeah, no, you have a really good point there. Yeah, hiding is not freedom. And
Right.
And yes, so before recording today, we were talking about self-love and how self-love has really helped you. But I was curious to hear your perspective on how self-love leads to greater freedom too, because we might not all of us might understand that.
So let me begin by saying that, I still have a wonderful life. I have a husband, I have incredible kids, I have financial stability. I did not come from an abusive family. So growing up, like, I had everything that an average person would have for a thriving life. I had a corporate career. I was making 6 figures. I had all of it. And yet I was deeply unhappy. I felt like something was missing. And I felt very ashamed of what's wrong with me. I have all of this to be grateful for, and yet I'm not grateful. What's wrong with me? So that's where my story begins. And I started exploring, how can I be more happy? That was the question. I was like, why aren't I happy? How can I be more happy? Right. And it led me to realize that I lacked any semblance of a relationship with myself. Right? I'm shortening the story here, but I came to the truth of, oh my gosh, I hold myself in very little regard. I don't respect myself very much. And I punished myself, and I was a horrible inner critic, and I was a bully to myself every day. But I was blind to it. I was blind to it until a life coach I had hired helped me see it. She was the mirror that I needed to reflect back to me and say, look, you've achieved all of these things, but yet you just dismiss them, or you don't think they are very worthy or valuable, or it's nothing, right? So we slowly started discovering how much I didn't like myself. And that's why I wasn't very happy in life, because I was totally disconnected to me. What did I want? What did I stand for? I had been so busy being a good girl, making sure that I, pleased my parents. And then I was doing all the things I was supposed to do to please my husband. Everything that I had done in life, I had done it because somebody had suggested it, or I had passively picked it up in life that this was the right thing to do, without ever questioning, is it right for me? So I had to start rebuilding a relationship with myself, like really learning, who am I? What do I like? Do I like it because somebody told me to like it, or do I actually like it?
Yeah.
Right? And I was so serious all the time, just focused on my goals. I remember one time my life coach giving me an assignment of what feels fun to you? What do you do for fun? And I was stumped. I was like, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what fun is, because fun meant that I was losing sight of my goals, right? So I started learning to spend time with myself. I started meditating, I started journaling, and I started letting go of so much baggage that I was holding on to from the past that I would kept replaying in my head, right? Things that hadn't gone well in my life, I would keep replaying it over and over and over, and just kind of project that into the future and assuming that's what it's going to happen. And so it wasn't really a true freedom. Like, I wasn't designing a future that felt free, because I was just repeating my past. And so self-love for me has meant embracing my imperfections, learning to forgive things that have happened in the past, self-forgiveness and forgiving others, stopping the people pleasing. What will they think? What should I do? What is the right thing for them? What will not upset other people? Self-love has meant, what feels good to you? What do you want to do? Right? Self-love can feel really selfish when you're starting out, because it's all about you. What do you want? But when we fill our cups, when we start to love ourselves, in the beginning, it will be conditional. Unconditional love for ourselves is very hard to get to. But when we learn to love ourselves, truly respect ourselves, what happens is you show up as a better friend, you show up as a better wife, as a better husband, as a better father, as a better mother, as a better child. And the ripple effect is amazing. So it's not actually selfish, it's actually selfless, because you're doing the internal work that needs to happen so that you show up as a better human to the whole world.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear like how self-love actually helps you show up as a better person to everybody.
So I'll give you a very real life example. I used to be a mother that snapped at her kids all the time. I didn't have a lot of patience, and I was just being a good mom, right? Like, be like, you need to get better grades, right? The things that we learned from our parents.
Yeah.
But I realized that I was turning into the mother that I didn't want to be, which was constantly nagging. And I felt horrible as a mother. I was like, I need to have more patience, but I didn't know how to do that with my children. So what I realized was I had very little patience with myself when I failed at things. When things didn't go perfect, I would be horrible to myself. And when I started on my self-love journey, I started becoming kinder when I messed up. I started giving myself more grace and saying things like, it's okay, you'll do better next time. You tried your best this time. Just the sort of internal talk, right?
Yeah.
And I started realizing, I started applying that same thing to my kids. They messed up, I would say, it's okay, you tried your best, not, why couldn't you have done better? Right? So I was like, oh my gosh, the rules I apply to myself. That's why I was snapping and being horrible to my kids.
Yeah.
I had zero patience for me, so I had zero patience for them. When I have more patience for myself and more kindness for myself, I'm kinder to my kids. And so that's how self-love impacts everyone around you. when you are good to yourself, you can't help but be kinder and nicer to people around you, and you have more patience, right? That's the biggest, result for me is patience. When we are more patient, we are able to actually listen better to other people. What are they saying? Not the words, but what's underneath the words. I'm a better listener, and I don't fly off the handle because I've taken time to take care of myself. I don't fly off the handle, and I'm responding to my kids. I'm responding to my husband, not reacting. And there's a big difference. Reaction is like snappy, you do this, I'm going to do this back to you.
Yeah.
Whereas a response is there's a time gap between. I hear what you're saying, but I'm not going to let you get to me. And I'm going to reflect back to you what you're telling me. This hurts. Please don't talk to me this way. Right? There's a distance between what's happening and how you're responding. And that actually makes the other person pause. Because when you're emotional, people stop listening. Right? When you're angry, when you're hurt, and you're reacting to one another, right? A friend and you are having a fight, they say something in anger, you react, you get back to anger. No, and both people stop listening. No one's listening. You're both just talking to be heard. Right? But when you build self-awareness, when there's self-love for you, when you know you've taken care of yourself, your cup is full, you don't internalize the anger that the other person is throwing at you. You realize this anger is really not about me. This is about you. And I'm not going to get caught in that story and that drama. There's a lot of threads that happen because of self-love.
Yeah. Even that, right, it's like, I went through like a really challenging last couple months mental health wise, and what I realized, right, was that I would become very snappy when I am not in a state of self acceptance, right? So very much more easily triggered because something someone says is triggering some long buried insecurity I have, right? And then I'll snap at them, or I could contain my self-hate for a certain amount of time, but then I'll explode. Like I'm more like I'm more inclined to explode if someone has triggered like a tyrannical stream of self-hating thoughts for me. So I can definitely relate to what you're saying there.
And part of the process of self-love is acknowledging the pain that we're in without ignoring it, right? What you said about you just kind of ignore it, and then we explode.
Yeah.
Right? But self-love is the process of realizing, oh, what that person said really triggered me, it hurt me. Let me examine it. Let me look at what happened, not they're wrong and just the blaming of it, right? Or distracting of it, where we try to run away from it, or we're like, oh, I don't want to face it, right? And we bottle it up. But self-love is taking time to journal and think about what that person said really hurt me. Okay, why does it feel so painful what they said? So they might have said something like, you're so lazy, right? That might have been such a trigger for, I don't know, based on personal experience of what happened when you were a child. Maybe you were constantly told, don't be lazy, don't be lazy, don't be lazy. So anytime somebody tells you now as an adult that you're lazy, it's not the present you that's hearing it. It's that child, the dad or the mom being criticizing, right? So you're immediately triggered back to that child version of you. And the child is the one that's reacting. So, and when we take time to nurture that inner child work is something that I do. When you take time to nurture and love on that inner child and pour unconditional love into that inner child, then the trigger doesn't feel so triggering anymore over time. It will diminish and you'll start to realize, oh, the person saying you're lazy, that's more about judgment on them than about me. You're able to separate what the person's saying from you feeling all emotionally caught up in it.
Yeah, that's a powerful skill to be able to do that. And yeah, I think you shared a lot of things that are highly relatable for our audience. Like so many people, they've reached like levels of success. A lot of us can't even imagine, but then struggle to really feel that success and celebrate it within themselves. And um, you know, yeah, like not even knowing, hey, what do I enjoy? Or, what, do I agree with what other people have told me to do in life? Like, yeah, so many of these topics I've heard come up for, other Asians I've talked to. So,
Yeah,
thanks for bringing those up.
you touched on a really important point about, no matter how many accolades or how successful we are, sometimes the person doesn't feel successful at all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's because we're looking for, I feel successful. That is an internal feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet all the things that we are trying to do is from the outside, like the certificates and the degrees and the promotion and the title and the pay, right? All of that dictates success in the material and the physical world. And what I realized was that you cannot try to get to an internal feeling through external things. We think we can. That's an illusion. That's why we keep chasing. That's why we keep going for that next job, next promotion, and then you get it. It might satisfy you for a week or a month. And then it starts again. You're like, oh, maybe it's the next level that I need to get to, right? This is why external success will never make you feel internally successful. You need to be able to feel successful in any given moment.
Yeah.
And not just success, right? Any emotion. We are trying to get something outside of us to make us help us feel that on the inside. It's not going to last long. So that, I don't know whether I'm making sense, but easily access any emotion that you desire in any given moment. You don't have to wait for something on the outside to change.
Yeah, and knowing how to do that can make us quite powerful indeed. And yeah, I'm at a point in my life where experience has taught me that those external things don't give a lasting form of satisfaction. And early on, before recording, you were saying how self-love is, again, not not an A to Z straight line journey, right? And I was wondering if you could, share more about that, and also share like what it really looks like, because there's a lot of days where I don't love myself at all, right? And neither can I conceive of ever seeing myself as a non-horrible person. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
So self-love definitely is not an A to Z, like a sweet little line graph, right? It is a horrible, squiggly, messy line. And it is filled with so many ups and downs, because what it requires is incredible bravery. It requires you to jump deep into your messiness and your past, which a lot of us just try to run away from our past. We don't want to face the pain that happened in the past, because our subconscious is telling us you won't survive it. It was too painful. Don't go back in there, right? It's fear. And the idea of fear is more fearful than facing the fear, if that makes any sense. Like, if you're about to go to the doctor and you need to get a shot, the leading up to, oh my God, I'm going to get a shot. I'm going to get a shot. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. That mental agony is actually more painful than the moment of you physically getting the shot. That physical moment is a second where they prick your skin, it hurts, it stings, and then it's done. Right? But you probably spent 24 to 48 hours or even longer agonizing about it. The agonizing actually caused you more suffering than the physical pain. It's the same idea about facing our past. The agonizing about, oh, what is it going to be like if I have to go back and face my past, causes you more suffering than the actual 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it might take for a coach or a therapist or counselor to lead you through that work, right?
Right.
So for me, I've had to go back and face a lot of painful stuff, yucky stuff from my childhood that I did not want to face. Like I was bullied as a child, right? I grew up in England for a few years, and I was the only brown child. And I used to get called horrible names in the playground, and people were scared because I had brown skin, right? I was 11 at the time. That's pretty traumatizing for a kid. So in my sessions with my life coach, I've had to go back in memory and face that pain. Just closing your eyes and putting yourself in that shoes, in that playground, and remembering as many details as you can. And to see myself get bullied and got called all those names, that was painful. Go back and just really see that 11-year-old child be so scared. Who willingly does that? It's much easier to just turn on Netflix and not think about it. But if you are brave enough and willing to do it, now what happens is I don't care about what are other people thinking of me when I walk into a room. Do I look pretty enough? Do I look beautiful enough? That is not something that I spend my energy worrying about. I look in the mirror and I know without a shadow of a doubt, I look beautiful. And it doesn't come from a place of boasting. It just comes from a place of deep knowing. Like I'm beautiful. I don't care whether anyone else thinks I'm beautiful or not. I know I'm beautiful, and that's all that matters. I wouldn't have got to that space if I hadn't spent the time going back to that playground and facing my pain and forgiving the kids that bullied me. They didn't know any better. They were coming from a scared place as well. That's why self-love is so messy, because it requires you to get your hands dirty and go into a space where answers are not handed to you. You are the one with the solution for that freedom. And the funny thing is, I've thought sometimes, oh, I've totally healed that memory. It will come back in a different way at a different time to be healed again and again and again. This is why the work never ends, but it's so fun because it is fun when you know the process, when you've gotten used to it and you start trusting the work. It becomes fun because oh, I'm feeling discomfort, I'm feeling scared. Let's go in, let's get messy, let's see what memory needs to be cleaned up, what memory needs to be released. And as soon as you do the work, you come out feeling 100 pounds lighter.
Yeah, I'm curious actually how re-experiencing it helps you to release it. Is it processing those emotions that were locked up inside, or because some people in the coaching or therapy world, I think they say for some traumas it may be too triggering to relive, but I wonder if that is helpful and necessary part of the process to release those emotions.
So I'm not a therapist or a counselor. I'm a life coach.
Okay.
But the type of events that I handle with my clients, they're not what I would call deep trauma, right?
Okay.
But it is trauma, like bullying and having a parent that wasn't very kind or nice, right? And I assess on a case-by-case basis what I'm capable of handling for a client and what I'm not. If I think this goes really deep, then I recommend them or refer them to people that are, more capable of handling it.
Okay.
But oftentimes, most of the time we are capable of handling certain trauma that's happened in our life, things from childhood, things people have said offhand, even as far as sexual assault and molestation, like all of that. We can handle it by going back. But again, I want to preface it by saying you need to know what you are capable of handling. That is on a person-to-person basis. And that also depends on your coach and your therapist and your counselor. But to your original question, we can energetically connect to our memories. And what happens when we do that is we get the power to to do the things and say the things that we never did when we were that age.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went back and connected with my 11-year-old, she had the freedom to say, this hurts. Like, I don't want this to happen anymore. And I got to talk to her and ask her, what do you think these kids are saying about you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And she was believing some really painful things, like, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm shunned because of my skin color. I'm not pretty enough. She was believing things like that, which meant I was believing things like that. It's not safe to show up. Right. And here I am, a life coach who wants to write books and speak on stages.
Mm-hmm.
So, but my inner child believes, don't be seen, because when you're seen, you get picked on and you get bullied.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how there's an internal conflict going on. The conscious adult me wants all the success and visibility.
Yeah.
The inner 11-year-old in me is going, don't do it. You're going to get bullied in the playground.
Yeah.
So you can't make peace with those two sides unless you help the inner child feel safe, because she will do everything possible to keep you safe, which will look like self-sabotage. It will look like procrastination. It will just look like avoiding in current day. So that's why going back and connecting to certain memories can be freeing, because you get to, in a way, replay it and reprogram it to how you would have wanted it to happen. And
how
bring
I
peace.
wanted it to happen. Yeah. Okay. That's a big piece. Yeah.
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 So it's not about beating up the other kids, right? That's not what I would have wanted to happen. What I it might have been to face the bullies and tell them it's not okay to treat people this way. Or it might have been to make your 11-year-old feel, no matter what anyone says about you, you are inherently worthy and beautiful. That's what I would have wanted to hear on the playground. Right? So I went back and I told her those things, and I stayed with her until she believed that. Right? Wow. It's not, and again, self-love work is not a once and a done thing. It's constant repetition. It's revisiting and doing the work over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it gives me a lot of hope to see that, wow, you've come so far since you've started on this journey, and, you're like, I don't know, you're radiating a lot of positive energy. So, it gives you hope that one day I'll be there too.
You absolutely will. You just got to keep doing the inner work. I come from a part of India that is from the South. It's very conservative. And it's a very close-knit community, right? Like we all know one another, and we tend to usually marry within the same community. And recently I did a workshop. There's an organization within that community for the youth. And I raised my hand and I said, please let me do a workshop for the young professionals. And I remember feeling insecure when I was in my 20s and just started my corporate job. I thought, how amazing would it be to give back? And I did the workshop, and the feedback I got back, oh my gosh, was so fulfilling, because it was girls, especially girls, because I mainly work with women, saying, oh my gosh, to see somebody from our community doing the type of work that you're doing, talking about the things you're talking about, it's incredible. Right? Because nobody talks about the stuff I talk about in our community. Everyone's fine. Everyone's great. Everyone's making money. Everyone's educated. Everyone's life is perfect.
Right.
Nobody talks about what goes on behind closed doors. Like how much self-hatred we feel, especially the kids, because we're trying to balance two cultures. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, am I American or am I Indian? For me, it's, am I American or am I Indian? Am I British? Because I grew up in all three cultures.
Oh, wow.
And you get so messed up. It's like, which identity do I show up as today?
Oh, man.
Right? You get so confused.
Totally.
There's no one version of you. There's 2 or 3 or 5 different versions of you.
Yeah.
And that's why we lose self-confidence, because we are presenting so many versions of ourselves to the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who the heck am I at the core of me? We don't know. It's so shaky.
Wow. Yeah, I've never heard it described exactly that way before, but that describes perfectly how I felt it many times in my life. And the work of integrating those sides of ourselves is like so important, and integrating and being unique and whole, and
Yeah.
right? Strengths and weaknesses, all of it.
When I decided to become a life coach and when I decided to talk about these very sensitive topics, I felt like I was betraying my community and I felt like I was betraying my tradition. I felt I was failing my family, right? Because we've been told over and over and over again, you don't talk about this kind of stuff. So part of what you're saying is integrating it. Like I still get to pick the pieces of my culture that are inherently me, that make me me. And I get to be this new version of me that nobody ever said I could be, which is to talk about these really vulnerable topics.
Yeah.
Which is to talk about pain and suffering and mental wellness.
Yeah.
I get to be both. It doesn't mean you are betraying your family or your culture because there's this new component to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like in fact, you know, even if we are airing out a little bit of dirty laundry, it's for the good of people in our communities too.
Oh my God, let's air out all the dirty laundry because right, silence breeds shame.
Yeah. Silence kills us. It really does.
Because it makes us feel ashamed, and shamefulness is one of the most stressful things that we can carry in our bodies.
Yeah.
Right. So when we speak and when we share, it sets us free.
Yes.
Because I promise you, the moment you start speaking out, somebody else is going to be like, oh, that part of that story resonates with me. Just like today, you know, there are things that I've been sharing that are deeply personal, but you can still identify parts of yourself in that story. And that's why sharing is so important. It not only sets the storyteller free, it sets the listener free as well, because they hear parts of themselves in the story.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, it's for both sides. It's for both sides to feel they belong. Yeah.
Yes. So please don't just air out little bits of dirty laundry. Air out all your dirty laundry after the initial shock of like, what have I just done? You feel so free.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, sometimes it can be like, you know, I got some dirty laundry that is, you know, possibly controversial and polarizing, but hey, you know, isn't it better to do that and find my people rather than just pretending to be the person for everybody, you know? I'm definitely not the person for everybody.
Yeah, when you silence yourself because you think that's what's best, you are doing a disservice to your well-being.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and your dirty laundry probably isn't as dirty as you think it is.
Someone's got it dirtier. Let's see who wins that battle.
Somebody's definitely got dirtier laundry, I promise you.
Okay. Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, earlier on, you had mentioned, you know, how, what is it? You had mentioned spirituality actually, and, you know, and I'm wondering what your perspective is on how spirituality can also help to free us possibly from the wild goose chase of achievement or other things.
Yeah. So there are two components to freedom, I believe. One is how deeply are you connected to yourself? I believe that will set you free. The more connected you are, the more you know who you are, what you stand for, and your values. The second part of it, how connected do you feel to the world around you? And that comes from, for me, through spirituality, right? Some people find it through religion, and some people might be atheists, but all of us are looking for a sense of purpose. What am I here for? Like, really, what are we here for, right? And when we feel a sense of purpose, then we feel more connected to life. We want to show up and we want to create impact in this world. Right. And for me, the sense of purpose has come through spirituality. And spirituality, I define it as connecting to the higher consciousness, right? That's around us. Like, what powers that be created the trees and the stars and the moon and the planet? If you think about it, everything in this world works so synchronistically. Like, we breathe out carbon dioxide and trees breathe out oxygen. And guess what? It's exactly what the other one needs. Right? Yeah. And that's incredible to me. And, you know, the moon it goes around the world every 28 days. And a woman's cycle is 28 days, which to me is mind-blowing, right? There's synchronicity in that too.
Yeah.
Who designed it that way, right? And so, I grew up in a Hindu culture, and I never really got any sense of peace from praying outside of me, right? But when I learned in spirituality, it's God is within all of us. Because God or the higher consciousness, divinity, whatever you believe in, created each one of us, right? And so so we all have that little piece of divinity inside of us. And spirituality is the exploration of connecting to that. So when I connect to the God within me, I feel connected to the world around me. I need to put that in a quote. I just came out with that
one. You came out with a lot of quotes today.
So when I connect to the God within me, I feel connected to the world around me. Right? And there's a sense of peace that comes from that. Life starts to flow. Because life is always flowing through us. And our human body is an expression of that life. Right? And when we realize that, spirituality helps me connect to that flow. It helps me step into that flow. That's when creative ideas are born. And it just feels magical. You're like, wait, where did that idea come from? Well, it came from something spiritual outside of you. And your human body is a vessel to birth that idea.
Right.
Yeah. So, I love meditation. I love going outside in nature. Nature is spiritual, right? Because it was created by the divine. And I never realized this because I was so stuck in my head, goal-oriented. I never spent time outside in nature. And now it's winter, it's a bit hard, but spring and summer and fall, I spend so much time grounding myself. I don't know whether you know what grounding is, but I go outside bare feet on grass and just walk around for 5 to 10 minutes. And there is an energetic exchange that happens between you and the ground. Like you can get rid of the negative energy that you don't want to hold on to. Mother Earth will take that, and she will give you in exchange her amazing energy, because it grows life. Like our soil grows life. It grows the vegetables and the plants that we need to eat and survive. Mother Earth has so much power inside of her, so we can draw that energy from her. And we can give the energy that we don't want to her, and she will transmute it into something much more powerful. So I'm getting into like really woo-woo subjects here, but I love that kind of stuff. We're all just energetic beings. That's all we are. We're just self vibrating. And we are all energy. Everything around us is energy.
Yeah, that actually ties very well with another topic you want to talk about, which is like we are human beings and not human doings. That we are like, these balls of energy, and I've heard that being is like something you cannot ever completely describe. I guess it is so vast, but I want to hear your thoughts on why, like, I guess, why we're not merely what we do, but also
because
more than that.
If we define ourselves from just the things that we do, then there is a finite capacity to that, which doesn't make us feel good. We are very limited. If we define ourselves as, I am the sum of everything that I do, which is currently how we live, which is why we feel so unhappy, right? And that's what makes me successful. You are immediately putting a cap on what you can do in a lifetime. Right? And that does not make us feel good. But when you think about who you are as a human being, there is no limit to that. Like, who are you as a being? That's a very open-ended question. And there's no limit or end to who can you be, right? And being just comes from being still and silent with yourself, because that allows you to connect to the energy that we talked about, right? Energy is unlimited, it's infinite, it's ever expanding. And so when you connect to the being inside of you, you are limitless. And so what you can do then becomes limitless.
Mm.
And nobody spends enough time, well, not nobody, but a lot of us don't spend enough time connecting to our being. We're always doing. And doing drains your energy. But when you're in your being, it replenishes your energy. The grounding that I talked about, right? That's you just being. You're not doing anything. You're just connecting to Mother Earth. Taking a bath. Anything that we do that helps us relax is us connecting to our beingness. That's why fun feels so difficult, because you're not accomplishing anything. When you're doing something fun, that's you in your beingness. You're like, I'm doing this because it brings me pleasure. And that's you being in your beingness. Right? There's no result or outcome that's attached to having fun. Or hopefully you have some activities like that where you're not doing it to achieve something.
Yeah.
Then it becomes a doing and not a being. But the more time you spend connecting to your beingness, the more you'll be able to do, if that makes sense. We all try to do without connecting to our beingness, and that's why we feel so exhausted, depleted, drained, angry, frustrated, disappointed.
Yeah. And possibly that's also because we're trying to fit ourselves into this mold of doing, or a particular role in our lives that doesn't even represent like 10% of who we really are. That vastness, having to shrink down all the time, it really gets me thinking.
We've been told time and time again that your self-worth is based on your productivity. Don't be lazy, right? That's why the don't be lazy can be so triggering, because unless you're doing something, you're not worth anything. And that's a lie. That is an absolute lie.
How are you able to say that with such certainty that is a lie?
Because I know for a fact that none of us would have been created. Like the moment we were created, that was the divine saying, the world needs one of you. The world needs one of you, Lilia. That's why you're created. You don't have to do anything. The world needed one of you, and that in itself makes you inherently worthy. That's it. It's just so simple, and we make it so complicated.
Well, yeah, I guess the trees don't think as much as we do about how tall they are, right? That's one example.
Am I blowing enough in the wind? Do I have enough leaves?
Yeah.
They're just there, and they, give their shade, and they're just there in their beauty, and we get to enjoy that. They're not doing anything. They're just being trees. Yeah. So why are we applying any kind of a different rule for ourselves?
Yeah, when it wasn't like realistic or reasonable in the first place, even.
Yeah, I mean, if we actually think about statistically, I don't know the exact number, it's like 1 in a trillion or something ridiculous. That's what's the chance of you being created, right? Like that particular sperm and that particular egg to be and to create you, like the chance of that happening is minuscule. And yet here you are, right? So the world, the divine, the higher consciousness saw it fit to create you. It said the world needs one of you. That in itself should be a reason for you to feel so good. Because there's just one of you, and the world needed one of you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as you were saying that, what popped up for me was that, it must be because of some inherent value that I'm here to bring other people. But that's not the only thing, because what you're saying is like more than just that. And I guess, I haven't yet intuited exactly what is outside that. Because like even with the tree, I'm like, oh yeah, like the way I think, right? Oh, it's a valuable part of the ecosystem. The wild squirrels live on it, and it turns carbon dioxide into oxygen, which is good for us, right? But can I see the tree as just a damn tree, like a tree that is beautiful just the way it is for existing, right?
Right. And
Well, actually, this is easy. It's easy for me to look at that tree and say it, right? But to look at me and say, I'm like, well, maybe some work is needed here.
Yeah. And that is all just programming, right? That is all just very deeply ingrained programming, which you can change.
Mm.
It doesn't, you're right. It feels so resistant to that idea of like, what? Like me just being is enough. Like that doesn't make any
That's
sense.
enough.
That's the,
Yeah.
but that's the truth. And that's why we get into all this pain and suffering, because we're like, what more do I have to do to prove myself? What more do I have to do to show people how worthy I am of having all the success? That proving.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it drains us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, being able to like see that we are great for existing, despite all these other people not really understanding or approving of who we are.
Yeah.
And realizing that their judgments are skewed too, so it's like broken scoreboard anyways.
Yeah. And when we realize when we realize we actually have nothing to prove to anyone, because just by being here, you've already proven that you're worthy. Right? When we let go of that need to prove, life actually becomes a whole lot more fun and easy, and everything that you want will actually come to you easier.
That's true.
Because by the very act of trying to prove something, you are in a position of lack. You're saying, I am not enough, right? When you're trying to prove something, you are inherently believing I'm not enough. And when a part of you believes I'm not enough, it makes it much harder to attract the very thing you want to attract to make you feel.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, that's so true. So anyways, Visa, thank you so much for sharing today. Any final thoughts or last words for guests before we?
Well, first of all, thank you for being so easy to talk to. The 1 hour has flown by. I have loved talking to you.
Hey, you as well. You as well.
And second, the final thought I would say is, if you don't already have or explored what kind of a relationship you have with yourself, please begin, because it is the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life. The relationship that you have with yourself defines the relationship you have with others, how much you allow others to love you. It defines the relationship you have with your body, with your health, with money, with everything. How you feel about yourself reflects in the reality of the world and the life that you live. So heal the relationship you have with yourself. All the other things will start healing in your life.
Will work itself out. Yeah, that is so true. Self-love is such a central pillar to everything. Thank you for helping me be present to that. And to our guests on the show, and to those who are watching on the show, hope you found this helpful. I certainly did. I'm very inspired. And yeah, I will see you all in our next episode. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.